If you run a business, chances are a lot of your time are being stolen by these three problems. Number one, you spend a ton of time trying to put together user manuals, checklists, and SOPs, only to have all of those documents fit in a folder that never gets used. Or you have a team, you have employees, virtual assistants, and no matter how many times you give them instructions and respond to their questions, day after day after day, they will come back to you with more questions and more instructions for you to answer and remind them of. And worse off, a lot of those questions are repeated, and a lot of those instructions, whilst they were given, they still come back to you for mistakes. Number three, you have a lot of ideas. You absorb a lot of knowledge. You do research, you learn, you join coaching programs like courses, and you collect all of these information and ideas, only have them be scattered around notes, Google Drive folders, documents, Notion pages, Apple pages. And when it's time for you to recall those information, or when it's time for you to actually make use of those ideas, you have a hard time actually retracing those ideas and consolidating them in a way that actually makes sense. Well, these problems will be solved with NotebookLM, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. NotebookLM is Google's newest and most powerful tool for synthesizing knowledge, conducting research, and massively accelerating or compressing learning time. And most importantly, have you gain the power of instant information recall. So not only can it turn your inter-documents, SOPs, instruction manuals, and checklists into a knowledge assistant who can train your team for you, so that the amount of time you have to spend training your new team members or answering Q&As can be practically reduced to zero. It can also synthesize all the information and ideas you have for a business into a memory bank. So rather than trying to memorize something or search up your notes for that one-liner as if it's a needle in a haystack, you can simply ask NotebookLM to extract a specific piece of information that you're looking for and have it delivered to you instantly. So without further ado, allow me to walk you through how you can set up NotebookLM and how you can utilize this AI tool to save a ton of time as a business owner. All right, so this is the main dashboard of NotebookLM after you create your own account. And for this walkthrough, I'm going to begin by walking you through how to build a company wiki in minutes and have the AI answer every single question that your team or anyone throws at you on a daily basis. So first things first, I'm just going to go ahead and start from scratch. So I'm going to click new here, and let's close this window and begin by naming the notebook. So I'm going to name this after my company Polaris, and this will be the notebook for Polaris's company wiki. So next, we're going to upload sources. So these sources of information will be the only piece of information that NotebookLM will reference as it conducts Q&As or conversations with your team members or whoever you share this to. In other words, unlike ChatGPT or Claude AI or Perplexity, NotebookLM's data points will only be sourced from the sources that you give to it directly. I'm going to start by uploading the following sources. I'm going to begin by giving it my website as the source. And then I'm going to feed it some Google documents, internal onboarding playbook. That's a document that would absolutely come in useful if I were to use this company wiki to train new virtual assistants or new team members. And I'm also going to go ahead and attach our HR manual to the company wiki, because in Polaris, we have founders systematize, delegate, and leverage time so they can go on more guilt-free vacations. And we do so by helping them hire a lot of virtual assistants. So we have a 50-page HR manual that we give to our virtual assistants so that they will know exactly how to navigate our company policies. And I'm going to also, let's say, feed it the end of day report templates. So whilst when a virtual assistant onboards to my company, or in fact, any team member onboards to my company, I will give them an overview of my company, an overview of their onboarding playbook with details around where to find information, how our team communication channels are structured, our company culture, our company values, and so forth, alongside with our HR manual. I do not expect my team members or assistants to be able to memorize 70 pages worth of information within 7 days. That will be very unrealistic. But at the same time, I do not want to do Q&A sessions every single day, every single week, just so that I can remind my virtual assistant or team members on information that should already been given to them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to upload all of these sources onto NotebookLM and share this wiki. So all you're going to do is to go to share and put in your team members' emails and give them share access, just like you would for a Google Doc or Google file, and they can play with this notebook. So I'm going to pretend to be a VA who's been with a company for 30 days, who now wants to go on a long weekend holiday. And let me pretend to be a VA asking a question. So I can say, I am a virtual assistant who has been with Polaris for, let's say, 40 days. I want to apply for a two-day leave from July 11th to July 13th. Just going to make sure that it's actually a weekend. So I'm just going to test this for July 8th to July 10th. And what steps should I take to apply for these days off? And will the days off be paid? All right. So let's see what NotebookLM answers this question with. Based on the Polaris HR manual, here is what you need to know before applying for your requested leave. So first off, you're entitled for fully paid annual leave only if you're hired under a continuous contract for no less than 3 months. Since you've been with Polaris for 40 days, which is as 3 months, it's unlikely that your requested days off will be fully paid annual leave this time. This is referencing our annual leave quotas for contractors. And whilst contractors typically don't get fully paid annual leaves, we do grant it to our contractors after they've been with us for 3 months. So the feedback is pretty accurate. And number two, to apply for these days off, in this case, this will be a non-paid day off. You can take the following steps: submit the annual leave request, make sure that it's 40 days in advance, notify clients and managers, discuss the plan, and yep, this is perfect. So just with this, I will save myself time to explain this to my VAs, because the information can be extracted from the HR manual, but at the same time, we can also save time from my team members from having to, let's say, scan through 40 pages, 50 pages of HR manuals to extract this information. All right. So another thing that I want to point out right here is that you can select the sources in which NotebookLM extracts information from. So for example, let's say I just want to limit the sources to my website, and I get asked NotebookLM for a specific question, such as, I'm a salesperson who is starting his first day at Polaris. Can you give me a brief summary of who Polaris works with as clients and what's special about the services they offer? And I'm going to hit it with a question. Wow, so this is quite a detailed answer. I asked for a brief summary, but I guess this is the brief summary for NotebookLM standards. So as you can see, not only will NotebookLM give you the answers, but it will also reference the source. Since we have only selected my website as the source, every single source right here will point towards my website and the copywriting within the website itself. But let's say go ahead and select all these sources and ask NotebookLM the same question. So in this case, whilst the information that I can see here is pretty much accurate, So aside from controlling sources, another thing that I want to point out is that these chats, if you don't save them, they will disappear over time. So if there's a piece of information that you really want to take notes of and you don't want to recall the question and answer queue again, simply hit save to note and the note will save right here. All right. So this is the walkthrough on how to create a company wiki. And just to give you a quick idea, you can essentially upload all of your company's assets and SOPs and user manuals into this company wiki, and it can essentially become your full-time knowledge assistant for team members. So for example, this is exactly what I've done here in my actual internal team guide. And as you can see, I have asked my virtual assistant to upload all of my SOPs on the internal team guide, along with playbooks and templates and so forth, and team meeting training notes, along with some playbooks and some guides on how to become a self-managed rockstar and so forth. So we have a ton of these. And that's why I also always recommend, hey, if you were to use AI, also train your VA or your team members on how to use AI, because just by doing things like this takes up a lot of time, and you would definitely benefit from having someone who can do all the manual setup work for you. Just with all of this information right here, every single time a virtual assistant asks a question or forgets how to do certain things or forgets about how to conduct a certain process, then they can simply ask a question and NotebookLM will give them the immediate answers, such as, can you give me the templates for sending end of month reports to my manager? And then boom. All right, here it is. And a very clean template has been created out of our internal manuals. So, all right. So this is the walkthrough for creating company wikis using NotebookLM. All right, now that we have built a company wiki in minutes using NotebookLM, let's go ahead and try synthesizing all of our best ideas and knowledge or assets into NotebookLM so that you can use it to repackage or resynthesize it into an infinite amount of brand assets, content ideas, or strategies they can use to sound like a genius and attract a class you're looking for. So first off, I'm just going to use the notebook that I've already built out right here, which is my courses, content, and brand. And again, I'm just going to share this example under the context of marketing specifically. You can also use this to create notebooks around, let's say, any knowledge or any ideas that you have ever come up with for your business. But for me, right now, I'm just going to use marketing because I think it's a more focused and more relevant example. So first things first, I have fed NotebookLM a few of my content assets. So there's my personal brand content. I'm just going to see if I can open this source. So I've been writing content like for 5 years, almost every single day. And this is a document with the hundreds and hundreds of pages of content that I've ever created around my brand. So this is going to be pretty useful. And since I write a lot of things, I want NotebookLM to actually be able to make use of it. And there's my brand voice guide. There's some of my lead magnets. There's the dossier or the PDF around my core offer. There's a video that I have filmed on YouTube on cultivating self-managing virtual assistants. Shameless plug, if you want to check out this video on how to cultivate self-managing virtual assistants and free up 20 to 40 hours per week without micromanaging, simply click here and I will, and it will mean a lot to me if you were to check it out. And there's also my website along with my content AI prompts. So I have a VA create a lot of AI prompts for me over the past year using Claude and ChatGPT. So I thought this is going to be useful as well, as I use NotebookLM to synthesize my content documents and help me create or plan out my content ideas and content strategies. And last but not least, just want to let you know, NotebookLM can also synthesize information that isn't owned by you. So for example, right here, I have added a reference from Dan Martell because I draw a lot of inspiration from Dan Martell, absolute legend. And I've uploaded his video on how to build a business that runs itself. And it is a summary of his book, Buy Back Your Time. And I can also add YouTube video links from people that I admire. And it can be anyone that that you want. So let's say YouTube, Alex Hormozy, productivity. And so you can grab this link from Alex Hormozy talking about focus and his productivity system and put it right here. So next time when you are, let's say, batching some content ideas, you can either select and include sources that are not owned by you, or only include sources that are owned by you. So anyways, let me try this out. I can say, using the sources given to you, list out the 5 main problems that Polaris solves for founders. Because like, I'm going to be totally honest with you, I learn a lot of things and can do a lot of things as a founder. So sometimes if somebody asks me, hey, Michael, what do you do specifically? Sometimes I have a problem answering that. And the last thing I want to do is to have my brand messages or content messages be all over the place. So using NotebookLM, I can simply remind myself of the 5 problems that I solve for people, which is task treadmill being jailed by their business because they're constantly busy, disappearing margins, growing but making less, complexity creep, work-life balance being destroyed, or the work or the life business dilemma, the way that I call it, delegation failure, underperforming virtual assistant teams. Yep, that's pretty accurate. These are the pain points that I solve for people. And I can also then follow up with this question. I want to batch a week's worth of content helping founders delegate smoothly and cultivate high-performing, self-managing virtual assistants. Referencing the above sources, give me 10 topics, 1 sentence each, that I can dive deep on. All right, and let's see what happens. And lo and behold, using the content pieces that I have sourced right here, including some from my mental models, we have now created a list of 10 content pieces that I can jam about. And here is the magic with NotebookLM, which I believe makes it superior for content planning than Claude or ChatGPT. The topics that they give out are topics that come from you, come from your voice, because the sources that these topics got synthesized from are from content pieces that you have already created yourself. And most importantly, it will also elaborate on each point by giving you the reference, the source reference that each topic came from. And since, for example, since this topic right here came from me spending a lot of time writing the copy in my website, I definitely want to leverage all the time that I've already spent ideating and phrasing my messages so that when I batch content, I can simply, let's say, repurpose or represent what is working rather than creating something from scratch. So there's another walkthrough, and I hope you will find this helpful. And last but not least, so if you want to synthesize your knowledge and ideate at an even higher level, then you can simply use a mind map function in NotebookLM. So for example, right here, Polaris business and prompts, business bullet and prompts. And if I click on the mind map, NotebookLM has already created 8 pillars to expand on the marketing materials, content, and brand assets that I can create off of my sources. And now let's say I want to expand upon content that is desired and outcome based. So based off this, I can now talk about reclaiming time, scaling businesses, experiencing freedom, delegating with confidence, alleviating bottlenecks, and all of these are desires that I want to speak to for my audiences with marketing. But let's say I don't want to speak to desires, I want to speak to pains. Then I can simply expand on the points right here, pain points addressed by Polaris. And I can talk about complexity creep, shiny object syndrome, hustle hamster wheel, delegation failure, feeling lost and frustrated, lack of productivity, and hyper reactivity, like all of these pain points, I can also reference this. And again, there's an infinite number of ideas that I can spin off from this. And if I were to expand upon each and every single one of these pain points or desire points, then guess what? I can simply click on one of them and let's see what happens. NotebookLM can then go ahead and expand upon that specific desired outcome and synthesize knowledge for me. At least I guess that is what it can do for me. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. So you can dive deep on every single one of those pain points or desire points or bullet points that the mind map has listed out for you. So this is more like a Russian doll model, and you can go deeper and deeper and deeper, or broader and broader and broader on demand with just a few clicks of a button without you having to idea anything from scratch. So I will highly recommend checking out this feature. And the last feature I want to share with you right here is that NotebookLM can also create an audio overview of all of the information that you have fed into it for every single notebook. So let's say I have a team member who loves listening to podcasts when he or she is commuting. So rather than having my team member listen to a random podcast, I can generate a podcast or a deep dive conversation teaching this team member about my company, how to perform in my company culture, my company values, and how to do certain things or how to hit KPIs for our business. And all you need to do is to click a button right here. And in a few minutes, it will generate a conversation based off of these 28 sources that I fed into this notebook. And let's wait for the magic to happen. So it's actually taking longer than I anticipated. So let me simply give you the podcast or the deep dive conversation that has already been created by NotebookLM for my content and brand notebook right here.
A whole bunch of social media posts, and actually some really personal reflections too.
It's a really rich stack, isn't it? Covers like everything from the nuts and bolts, the processes and systems, all the way to, strategic thinking and the very personal side of being an entrepreneur.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to cut through all
so
that noise
this is
and pull out the core insights.
Amazing.
We're looking at something that,
because NotebookLM right here essentially created a podcast style conversation that's pretty engaging, talking about my brand and everything that I fed it, and it compressed it into an 18-minute deep dive conversation on a style of podcast. So again, couldn't recommend this tool enough, and hope it's helpful. So hope you found this video helpful, and if you want to see more videos on how to systematize your business, delegate, get time back, and go on more guilt-free vacations as founders and entrepreneurs, hit that subscribe button and check out my last video, and I will see you in the next video.